And of course, sex, gender, pregnancy, that's all wrapped up into one, including gender identity and sexual orientation is there. And the other ones I think are pretty evident. All right. So those are the protected categories. So here's a question for you. Let's put it to test. Is this illegal discrimination? John is an avid sports fan. I mean, if it's got a ball, he's gonna watch it. He just loves the balls. And so he loves sports. And whenever he's hiring someone, he's always asking questions about their favorite sports teams. He's like, go Wolverines, huh? And he generally will only hire people if they are interested in sports. Question, is that illegal discrimination? No, because sports loving is not a protected category. However, what are the chances that if John uses this to hire people, what are the chances he's going to be hiring a lot more men than women? Pretty high, right? And that would become illegal discrimination. So sometimes the thing you do on the outside is fair and it's good, but it has a discriminatory impact, and that would be a situation. All right. So what do we do about it? How do we stay on track and out of court? Here's what we do. First of all, you have to establish clear policies. Clear policies on discrimination. And you've got to teach people what discrimination is, because not everybody knows. But here's the funny thing. Not only do you have to establish clear policies, you have to follow them. So we had a lawsuit where the company had a clear discrimination policy. It was really good. And yet they lost their case because their manager didn't follow the policy. So just having the policy is not good enough. You've got to have the policy. You got to follow the policy. You've got to train people, and you've got to train them regularly. Remember what I said at the beginning? I go around this country reminding people of the things we learned in preschool. Because I don't know why, but as adults, sometimes we forget. So you can't train one time and go, yeah, we did that training back in 19. You can't do that. You're going to have to train regularly, because you're always getting new people in and people are forgetting. And that means your managers as well as your frontline staff. So my thing is not working. Can I have just someone click to the next thing? Oh, so there are things popping up on the screen. There we go. Thank you. Technology, am I right? It's always good stuff. Always good stuff. And then you have to have regular audits. And what do I mean by that? I mean, in your organization, take a look around. If there's a disproportionate of one type of person, you might have an issue. And it's not that it's an issue on purpose, but you might have that issue. When Bill called, when we came into his to the funeral home, and one of the things that we did was take a look at the discrimination harassment policies. We actually took a survey of what people were feeling. Oh my God, CEOs say this all the time. We do the survey and we say, hey, 30% of your people are feeling discriminated against. And the CEO is like, no, that's not possible. We don't allow that. Yeah, no one wants to hear that their baby is ugly. But the good thing is, once we know, let's not take it personally, but once we know, we can do something about it. All right. So unrecognized harassment. Now, sometimes harassment is, obvious. It is obvious. So someone tell me, what is harassment?
Apparently against the guy with the boat.
Yes, that's what's happening. Yelling, right? Your kids are feeling harassed because you keep telling them to pick up their shoes, right? So here's harassment. The thing is, there is people who feel like they're being harassed. My boss is always all over my case every time I'm late. I feel harassed, right? Or someone, keeps wanting me to give my reports on time. I'm feeling harassed. That's not harassment, right? Here's the legal definition of harassment. It has to be unwanted conduct based on a protected class that is severe or pervasive enough to create a hostile work environment, or it unreasonably interferes with a person's ability to do their job. That's a lot. That's a lot. And so here's my question. When it comes to harassment, what is the most common complaint? What do you think is the most common harassment complaint? Sexual harassment, that's a good one, but no. Age discrimination, also a good one, but no. Gender, okay. Bullying. Here's the deal about bullying. It is not federally protected unless the bullying is based on one of the protected categories. However, in a lot of organizations, they still have rules against bullying, but it's not a protected category, and it's not the complaint that I'm looking for. I'm gonna tell you what it is, because you have most of them. Disability. Back when I was practicing law, it was always race and sex, race and gender. They were always neck and neck, neck and neck. But now disability, because a huge proportion of our population are baby boomers, they're getting older. There you have it. And they refuse to leave the workplace. They just refuse, just working forever. All right. Then there's race, and then gender, sex, and then age. So those are the ones. But you know what is the number one? The number one complaint is retaliation. The number one complaint is retaliation. Why? Because a person will sue for disability and retaliation, race and retaliation, or maybe race, sex, age, and retaliation. So retaliation is always added. So, and the truth is that retaliation cases actually win more than the other cases. Why? So we had a case, it's always a case, where the person complained about sexual harassment. The next thing you know, that person gets put on the graveyard shift, and that person's office gets moved to a utility room right after they complained about sexual harassment. Yes. And so when they did the investigation, guess what they found? There was no sexual harassment, but there was retaliation. So she won that part of the case. The thing about it is, if someone complains about something, you have to be neutral. You have to be neutral, and the rest of the employees have to be neutral, which you have to teach them. Because like I said, retaliation claims win far often than other claims. All right, so, and the thing about harassment is it's not always easy to tell that it's happening, but it's important because it's important for employee well-being. People don't feel good in a place where they're being harassed. And then you have, of course, the legal compliance. It's against the law, so let's not have it. And also, you want to prevent escalation, because sometimes a tiny little comment can be dealt with early, but if that tiny little comment keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, then we're going to have a bigger problem. And it's also about protecting your reputation, right? You want the reputation that you are a fair organization, and that is for getting your clients in and also for keeping your staff in. All right, so hostile work environment is a branch of harassment. So here is my question. Is this hostile work environment? Would this be sexual harassment? What's the answer? It depends. Excellent. That's an excellent attorney answer. It depends on a lot of things, and very good. You're right on target there. Now, what if this is a, what do you call that? A firm photo. What if it's a firm photo? That might make sense, right? Oh, what if it's her best friend at work or her husband? We don't know. But like my friend there said, the way we would tell is, first of all, is it unwelcomed? Is it unwelcome? Is it the kind of person where, don't touch me, right? And touching at work is generally not a good idea. But is it unwelcome? The other thing is it pervasive? If it's one touch, one time, that's not really hostile work environment, right? That kind of touch, right? But is it pervasive? Meaning, does it happen all the time? So there was a case where the gentleman was accused of saying to the woman, "I'd like to put hot sauce on your toes and lick it off." I know some of you are disgusted. There's a couple of you going, "Ooh." Just a couple, just a couple. You don't have to raise your hand, it's all right. And so that was not the issue. Definitely had sexual innuendo in there. The issue was this. Every time he would see her, she says, every time he would see her, he would do this. She'd be going to the restroom and he'd go. She'd be coming back from lunch and he would go. This he did over and over again. That becomes pervasive. They settled that case for your information, because I know you're dying to know. It was never proven whether or not that actually happened, but that's what she said. All right. And so that is pervasive. It happens all the time. And it gets to a point where it creates a hostile work environment, unreasonable interference with the person's ability to do their job. Can you imagine having to hear that every day? Yikes. Now, sometimes it's not pervasive. It's not something that happens over and over and over again. Sometimes it's just the one thing. So there was a case where a man and a woman were working dispatch late into the evening. They're the only ones in the room. And he decides to put his hand up under her sweater. All right. Now, that would be severe. He only had to do it one time for it to be severe, right? And it unreasonably interfered with her ability to do her job. Now, here's the key to all of it. The key to all of it is how the company responds. That's what's going to determine if it is indeed a hostile work environment, right? And that kind of brings me to my next common mistake, which is inadequate response. This is a doozy. Here's the deal. When I was practicing attorney, what I noticed is that a lot of the lawsuits that came across my desk were not because of malicious people. They were mostly people making mistakes, and mostly middle management making mistakes. Just, doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, or saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. But look, I'm not mad. I'm not mad because a lot of them don't get trained. And that's part of the problem. They don't get trained. These laws, this is not natural. People don't know this. That's why the people have to be trained. And inadequately responding is one of the biggest problems. So let us say Jen comes in and she says, I was just in the lunchroom and they're making all kinds of jokes about women in there. And I felt very offended. And it was George. He was leading the pack. And one of the managers says, "Oh, don't worry about George. He's just a big mouth. He doesn't mean anything by it." Is that the appropriate response? That is not the appropriate response, right? So let us say that Jim, just making up names here. Let us say that Jim comes in and says, those millennials are making age jokes again. And it's bothering me. Oh my God, really? Oh, they're doing that. That is so bad. They're so terrible. Oh, you poor thing. Is that an appropriate response? No, it's not an appropriate response. Your response actually needs to be neutral, because you're not going to condemn or forgive anything immediately. What your job is to do is to gather information, to gather all the information. That's how you do an adequate response. And by doing so, you can save your company, because there is an affirmative defense. Basically, it says that the employer exercise reasonable care to prevent and to correct the behavior. How do you prevent it? You have training, you have policies. How do you correct it? You do a thorough investigation every time, all the time. That's how you do it. And the other part of that is that the employee did not do what it needed to do to prevent the situation, meaning they never came to tell you. Because there was a time where you'd have lawsuits that would come 3 years after they quit. And you never told the office that this was a problem. You know, the company cannot correct it if they don't know about it. So that is your affirmative defense. So that is why you need to respond appropriately. So how do you stay on track and out of court? First of all, establish and follow policies. Train your staff to take all complaints seriously. Create a culture of respect. And of course, take every complaint seriously. All right, so let's talk about, all in my head, Alan, we're going to talk about undocumented processes. And when I was working with Bill at Fairfax Memorial, this was one of the biggest problems. All kinds of processes, undocumented. So if a person went to this manager, they did it this way. If they went to this other manager, they did it this way. You wanted that day off and you couldn't get it, go to the other manager, he'll give it to you. And when the employees couldn't get what they wanted out of either manager, guess where they went to? The CEO. And him being a very family man, and it's a family business, he would sometimes give in and sometimes not give in. Ooh, it was just a mess. But I'm going to talk about all in my head, Alan. You probably have one of these people in your offices who's been there since the beginning of time and knows everything. Anybody have that? They know everything. They know all the documentation, or you got this person who knows everything in operations, schedules, supplies, knows everything. Raise your hand if you have someone like that in the office, right? Everybody goes to them. Everybody goes to them, right? To that person. But here's my question. What if that person decided one day not to come back? I'm not going to have them hit by a bus because I don't want that energy in the world. But let us say that they suddenly win the lottery. And though working for you has been their passion, they decide to do something else. What are you going to do? You're going to be jacked up. That's what's going to happen. And so you want to document your processes so that you have clarity and consistency. Again, if there's a way to do it, and I know a lot of the things you do are regulated, if there's a way to do it, we need to do it that way every time. Employees need to have clarity on what they're expected of them from all parties, right? We had to get those two managers together, write down the policies, and these are the policies. And then the CEO says, okay, well, I'm glad that we have these policies, but if I decide to do something different, I can do that, right? No, you have to follow the policies. All right, here we go. It becomes your legal defense. When something goes wrong, you get to say, hey, here are our policies. Not only are they written and our employees knew that, but we're following them, right? It helps you with risk management so that you don't have problems, mistakes that could harm you or your clients. It's good for training and onboarding, and of course, for customer satisfaction. You want your customers to know that if they get this person, this funeral director that's going to help them, it's going to be good. But if I get Sam, I don't know how it's going to work out if I get Sam. His name is not Sam. I'm just pointing. But you want to have that customer satisfaction. You want to know that your customers are getting treated excellently every single time, right? By every single person that touches them. So here's some things for you to do. You need to have SOPs. How many of you have SOPs? Standard operating procedures. All right. Those of you who don't, get some. You need to have standard operating procedures. You need to have the list of the things that you're supposed to do so that everybody knows what they're supposed to do. So you want to have that. And of course, you have to have cross-training. You have to make sure that, this person is cross-trained in this job and that person is cross-trained in that job. So if someone is out, what if they go on maternity leave? What if they go on paternity leave? They're gone for a month. What are you going to do? But if someone else is trained and you have the SOP, that means they're going to be safe. All right. So, review your SOPs regularly, because the SOP that you had in 1971 might not be relevant today. It might not be. So they do need to be updated from time to time. All right, so let's talk about mischaracterized employees. Yes, so this is Emily, Emily exempt. And so Emily was an excellent frontline worker. And then we gave her, a quasi promotion, called her team lead, right? And we decided to give her a salary, right? A salary. That's what we're going to give her. Oh, since we're giving her a salary, that means she's exempt. She's exempt. That means that we can work her for 45, 55, 65 hours a week. No overtime. Yes. No, that doesn't work that way. Because of the FLSA, hourly workers get overtime, exempt employees don't. However, title doesn't make them exempt. It's not about the title that they have. It's really about the salary they get and the work that they do, right? So here are the requirements. They have to have a salary of at least $684 a week, and they have to have the type of position where they are managing some portion of the business, where they are exercising discretion, or where they're exercising independent judgment. Just because they're managing your calendar does not make them a manager. Does that make sense? And so that person would not be exempt. And so that was another thing that we had to do with Bill. Go into the organization and do an assessment, figure out who's getting paid what for what and how, and we had to make some adjustments. So get a legal assessment. You want to train your managers on what is exempt and what is not exempt. They need to know before they start calling people exempt. Have formal job descriptions so that we know exactly what it is. Formal job descriptions are excellent because if you do get sued, right, you get to say, this is the job. It is clearly an exempt position, right? Because it's all in the job description. So you want to have that. And a lot of this that I'm talking about, you want to have it even if you don't go to court. We want to have it, and we want to have these things in alignment so that we can avoid going to court. It's not just about going to court, because sometimes if you're working with the other attorney and you have good documentation, then we can avoid a lawsuit altogether. And then have regular audits, because sometimes things change. All right. So, inconsistent discipline. This was another issue also. So let us say, we're going to call her Alice. Let us say Alice is 10 minutes late. She's 10 minutes late and you're like, hey, Alice, we kind of need you to be here on time. All right. Great job. And what if Hassan is also 10 minutes late? What is wrong with you? Why are you always late? We're going to write you up. Is something wrong here? Is something wrong here? Something's wrong because we're not treating them the same. What if Hassan hands in his report, it's a couple of days late? We're like, hey, Hassan, next time, we want to get that in on time, right? But Alice's report is also late, and you just give her a hard time. You give her a hard time and demote her. Forget it. I never want you to do a report again. Is that going to be a problem? It's going to be a problem. And sometimes we discipline based on how we feel that day. That's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. You want to make sure that you are consistent in your discipline, because if you're not, they will scream harassment, discrimination. They're going to scream it, and it may not have been your intent, but what does it look like? Does that make sense? What does it look like? And I don't understand why managers are so reluctant to discipline in the first place, right? We don't want to make people feel bad. But if given a choice between losing my job and having an opportunity to do better, which one would you choose? You choose, give me a chance to do better, right? It seems fair enough. And when we discipline, that's what we're doing. We're not disciplining saying you're wrong and terrible. We're saying, here's your opportunity to do better. Here's an opportunity. Take it. Of course, they don't take the opportunity, then we have to make other choices. But with all of this, what's also important is your documentation. You need to know who you're disciplining, why you're disciplining, and you need to give people the opportunity to get better. Otherwise, you're going to be in court and there's going to be questions. There's going to be questions and they're going to want answers. You want answers? Say it with me. You can't handle the truth. Wait, I messed that up. I got to do it again. You're going to be in court. They're going to ask questions. They're going to want answers. You want answers? I want the truth. Now say it. Yeah, that was just for me, just for fun. You can't handle the truth. Well, you want to be able to handle the truth if you end up in court. And so you need to have all of that documentation. All of that documentation, you have to make sure that you are disciplining people consistently and that everything is documented. All right, so the dangers of inconsistent, the perception of unfairness. Maybe that was fair. I don't know all the details, but if people get the feeling that it's unfair, those feelings are going to be their reality. So you want to make sure you're doing things consistently. You loss of credibility. If you keep saying, I need you to do it this way, you say it one time, and then this person is doing it the wrong way, but you don't say anything to them. Oh, and then you come back again and say, hey, you're not doing it this way. You lose credibility. It's obviously not important to you. Can I say the number one thing that managers do that ruin their credibility is not following up. When you're talking to an employee and you say, I need X, Y, and Z, and then you just go about your business, right? The first time you say, hey, I need you to be here on time. Well, they're going to be here on time the whole week. The whole week they're going to be on time and you're not going to say anything about it. So the next week they're going to be late just one day, just 5 minutes. And then they're going to go back to their normal thing. Anyone experience that? You talk to an employee, they promise to do better, they do better for 5 minutes, and then they're back to the original. And part of it is that we're not following up. To say, hey, I noticed that you were on time this entire week. Keep up the good work. Or whatever it is you've asked them to do, you need to follow up so that they know that you're paying attention. Otherwise, lip service. Yeah, they don't really care. Does that make sense? All right. So it increases your liability when there's inconsistency. And of course, conflict escalates when we're not doing the same things the same way each time. So here's some ways. You see, I keep coming to that. Establish and follow policies. When I worked with Bill, that is the biggest thing that we did. We spent most of our time establishing policies so that they could follow those policies. You have to be immediate and consistent with your discipline. We want to give correction and the opportunity for improvement. We always want to give improvement because the courts will ask, did you give him an opportunity to improve? And of course, in the law, the 3 most important things are documentation. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. I believe that lawsuits are not won on the basis of justice, not on the basis of right and wrong, but they're won on the basis of what you can prove. Document everything. But here's the deal. Don't just document the bad stuff, document the good stuff too. When your employee does something good, document it. Send an email. Keep that because that's important also. All right. Train your managers. So, improper interviewing. So let us say you're interviewing a person to come work in your organization and they roll in a wheelchair. Now, there are parts of the job that require lifting and walking, and you say to yourself, I don't think this person could do this job. And then you don't hire them because you didn't think they could do that job. That would be discrimination. Or you say to the person, hey, I don't think you can do this job. Also, discrimination. Because when they don't get the job, it could be seen that you didn't give them a job because they had a disability. But I didn't think they could do the job. So the way you handle that is you basically say, here are the job requirements. And you just ask, are you able to do the job with or without an accommodation? Are you able to do the job? And then they decide, and then we figure it out. The thing about the ADA, it's very, very easy. It's very, very easy to make mistakes and end up in the courtroom just by the questions that we ask. And a lot of managers do not understand that we have to have that accommodation mindset, right? We have to be willing to accommodate. So ADA, basically it says that companies are required to give a reasonable accommodation to enable a person with a disability to have the same employment opportunities as someone without a disability. So that is what that. So here's some best practices for you. First of all, review your procedures for ADA compliance, review job descriptions, right? Formalize your processes for addressing accommodation issues. Partner with your employee or with a healthcare professional and outside agencies to make those accommodations or see what's necessary, and basically maintain an accommodation mindset. The idea that I am here to help and to accommodate so that the person can do their job. All right, so those are the best practices. We're on our last one. The last one is untrained managers, although I've talked about this the entire time, right? It is our managers who, like I said, I'm not mad at them because most managers were promoted because they did a good job as a frontline employee. One of the people in Bill's company was promoted to manager because he had been there for so many years. He was a terrible manager. He wanted everyone to like him. So he was very wishy-washy with the rules, very wishy-washy. That's why they knew if I can't get it from Archer, go over here to William and you'll get what you want, right? Here's the training most managers get. It looks like this. There you go. Good luck. How many people had that kind of training? Just gotta jump in. Come on, I saw your hand. Jump in, get it done. So we need to train these people. And what I don't understand is whatever the manager knows, the company knows. Whatever the manager does, the company does. So you are putting the entire weight of your company on the shoulders of an untrained person. Like I said, most of the lawsuits that came across my desk were because of untrained managers. So it makes sense to make sure that they know what you want them to do and know the law. This is not natural. People don't just know this because you get a promotion. People need to be trained. The risks are legal liability. Of course, the manager gets the company in trouble all the time. Your managers are untrained. Their practices are going to be inconsistent, like between Archer and William. They were inconsistent. Poor employee relations. And that's why Bill called me, because he's like, it's misery. Because people are saying that that's not fair and they can't do it. And I asked for this and I didn't get it. It was a mess. And then there are compliance violations as well. So what do we do about it? Here's what we do about it. I may have mentioned this before. You want to train your managers. Take the time and the effort to train your managers. I remember doing a training. I did this training and it was some management training that I did. And a person came to me and said, I've been managing for 12 years. I never knew this stuff. He said, if I knew this earlier, I would have done things differently. So they want the training. I mean, the issue is you promoted me to manager. You must think I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to act like I know what I'm doing. But how about we just train them so that they actually know what they're doing? So what are we training them on? We're training them on the policies. We need them to know the policies and understand the policies. We're teaching them to report. When something looks awry, they need to be asking questions, right? They need to be asking. They're not going to memorize all of the laws. That's impossible, but they do need to understand those policies and they need to know to report or to ask. And also they need to learn to discipline appropriately. So those are the things that our managers need. So here's our little bitty review of what we've talked about today. Inappropriate language, illegal discrimination, unidentified harassment, inappropriate response, undocumented processes, mischaracterized employees, inconsistent discipline, improper interviewing, and untrained managers. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to give some thought right now to keep punching the wrong button. 2 things you've learned and 1 thing you're going to do differently. And I'd like you to talk to your neighbor about that right now. Talk to your neighbor about 2 things you've learned, 1 thing you're going to do differently. Do that now, please. I know. All right, let's go and bring that to a close, please. Let's go and bring that to a close. Here's a question. Anybody feeling a little bit nervous? Just a little bit. Well, here's the deal. The thing is, when your company grows to a certain size, the laws start creeping in. They start creeping in, right? And that was Bill's issue. When he was 15 people, it was cool. They could just do whatever they want. At 25, they were still trying to, do it, keep that small family feel. But when they got to 75 employees, things had to change because the laws have crept in at this point. And you get that many people, there's bound to be problems. So I was talking to Rachel the other day, yesterday at dinner. One of the things that we talked about was the fact that the road to where we are now was not a straight line. Anybody agree? Anybody agree? Anybody had a straight line here, like you just knew when you woke up, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in funeral services. It's going to be great. Anybody? No, for most people, it's like this way and that way and the other way. And so I wanted to share with you how I became an attorney. So I was working in a law firm in Southern California, at beautiful downtown California. And then my husband and I decided that we wanted to buy a house. I was working as a legal secretary. We buy the ugliest house on the block. Just really, it was terrible, but it didn't matter because we had dreams. When you're young and in love, you got dreams. We had dreams, and our dreams were we're going to take off the roof and add a second story to our house. Oh man, we were gonna add more bedrooms, one for the girl, one for the boy. Oh, it was gonna be excellent, excellent. Now, I need to remind you that this is in beautiful, sunny, Southern California, right? I take the roof off my house and what happens? No, it didn't rain. It monsooned. I mean, the rain poured into my unprotected house for 3 days. 3 days. The house was ruined. And so were our plans. And the contractor took absolutely no responsibility for the damage. So we fired him, but it didn't change the fact that every dime we had in the world was invested in this house. This wasn't just our house, this was our home. And it was gone. And just when we thought it could not possibly get worse, what happened? It got worse. The contractor sued us. The contractor wanted the rest of his money, even though he ruined our house. So I want to do a little inventory, if I may. So I'm penniless, I am homeless, and now we're being sued, right? I'm telling you, when it rains, the only good thing that I had going for me is that I worked in a law firm, for a partner, in fact. So I go to the partner to ask for help. Now, I'm hoping that Tom is going to give me the phone number of an attorney who can help me, or maybe take the case himself. Oh my gosh, that would be great. But that's not what he does. Instead, Tom walks me down the hall into the law library. He tells me to read a book, write a memo, and handle the case myself. I looked at him like he was out of his mind. It's like, have you met me? I'm a legal secretary. I've got a 2-year degree from community college in photography. I've got beautiful pictures of the house. But to go up against a seasoned attorney who's got a law degree, a 4 degree, and 10 years experience, there's no way I could do that. And I just start doing what any mature woman would do in a time like this. I cried. I did, but you know how it is. When you get to that point where you keep trying to have that smile, right? It's gonna be okay, it's gonna be cool. And one thing after another just keeps bogging you down. And I was just in that place, on the fence between fear and faith, not knowing which way I was gonna go. And as I am blubbering, the partner puts his hand on my shoulder. He looks me in the eye and he says, I believe in you. I believe you can do this. Les Brown says that sometimes you have to grab onto someone else's belief in you until your own belief kicks in. And that was enough for me. So I followed his instructions and I handled that case myself. And guess what happened? I won. I did. I won that case. It was amazing. The other side didn't know what hit them. They didn't know what I was made of. But to be honest, neither did I. I needed to have someone who could see inside of me the parts that I could not see. And I believe that as leaders, that's what our job is. To see people not as they are, but to see people as they could be, so they become what they should be. Because of that experience, I decided to go to law school, end up working with one of the biggest firms in Los Angeles. So that is how I became an attorney. So I wanted to thank you so much for your time. I gotta leave you one more story. Oh, here it is. When my daughter was about 3 years old, she was getting ready for bath time. And she was very agitated, very upset. Now, I don't know why, because I've got the water and I've got the ducks. I'm not running after ducks today. I've got the little ducky towel that's got the bill here and a little tail. So I've got it all. We're ready. And she's very agitated. So I get down on one knee and I pull her in close and I go, tell mama what it is. She says, Mommy, every day I have to take a bath. When does it end? My sweet potato. She's 22 now. But I say to my baby, it doesn't ever end. You can't think you're going to take a bath this one day and you're good for the rest of the week, the rest of the month, the rest of the year. That's not how it works. You've got to take a bath every single day, mostly. And it's the same thing with everything that you're going to be learning here at this conference this week. You can't think you're going to come here and you got it all, and that you're good for the rest of the month, the rest of the week, the rest of the year. The information that you're gathering here today and the 2 days that follow, it's the kind of thing you're going to have to implement every single day. You're going to have to come back to it again. You're going to have to read your notes again, because that's how you're going to be the best. My name is Star Bobatoon. I invite you to embrace your inner light and to be the star that you were born to be. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I told you a minute ago, you're scary. You're scary. But it's valuable and good takeaway for us. So thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
That concludes our program for today. Please check your schedule on the program for tomorrow's activities, plan out your day, and have a great evening. Thank you.
Knock on you again. Feels I forever lost a friend. Didn't know it drifted off so far. Kind of hope the tidal waves faded out. Faded out. Faded out. Faded out. Back on you, my friend. Got disconnected once again. Didn't know the wall was up that high. Kind of hoping from by now. By now. By now. Still your head. Today. I'll sound it say that it's all in your head. You believe me, it's better left unsaid. But most I regret. You see your future, you stuck with the past. Don't think the things I'm feeling true, no. Don't think the things I'm feeling true. Don't think the things I'm feeling true, no.
This ain't a scene or a silly act. I still remember what you said. I'm just trying to find a way to extract some ghost in your head, some ghost in your head.
Ghost in your head turns blue into red. All listen say I'll something say it. It's all in your head.
It's all in your head.
You still believe it's better left unsaid.
Sounds bad.
But most I regret.
Ready.
You see the future.
Get the better days. Get the better days. Get the better days.
Think nothing to you.
Yeah.
Think nothing I'm feeling true. Think nothing I see you. Think nothing I'm feeling true. in your head.